Hi everyone. Notes 2.4 are on factoring trinomials by trial and error. And I just want to show you all a couple of things really quickly. And in order for us to be able to know how to factor trinomials by trial and error, we need to be able to see where this factoring is coming from. And it will come from this multiplication that we do here. So here we would typically multiply 3x by x. We would get 3x squared. 3x times 2 would give us 6x. 4 times x would give us 4x. And then 4 times 2 would give us 8. These are like terms. They give us 10x. And then I just copy everything else down. Now, one thing that I want you to notice is, so we used FOIL to do this, right? So this 3x times this 4 that we did here, that's where we got this 3x squared right here. So that's the first in FOIL, okay? And then this 4 times 2 that we did here, that's how we got this 8 right here in this example here. So this is the L of FOIL, right? It's the last terms. But if you notice right here, to get this 10x right here, it came from the 6x, and the 6x came from the O. And you know what? Let me just label this here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So the 6x came from the O, and the 4x came from the I. So this 10x right here is the O and the I combined together. Okay? So like, for example, in this example that we have here, I could go straight to my answer here by saying that the first, the 5x times the 2x would give me 10x squared. So this right here is the first. We also have our last, which is the negative 3 times the 1, which is negative 3. So this right here is my L. And then the middle term that we have here is the combination of our outside term, which is this 5x, and our inside term, which is this negative 3 times 2x, which is negative 6x. And when I put them together, I would get negative x. And so this right here comes from the O and the I together. Okay? So when we factor, we're undistributing the trinomial to put it into a product of two binomials. So like in this example here, I'm given this example right here, this problem, and I'm trying to put it back into the brackets here. So I'm trying to put it back into my binomial times a binomial. And if you remember right here, this 3x squared comes from the first, so it'd be this multiplied by this. And this 8 comes from the last, which would be this term multiplied by this term. And then the middle term comes from the O and the I together when you put them together. So for the first term, I'm going to look for factors of 3. So what times what would give us 3? And the only option is just 3 and 1. So I would have 3 and 1, but I have x squared, so it'd have to be 3x and 1x. And by the way, we don't have to put the 1 here. And also, by the way, this right here, the method is called trial and error. So you will need a pencil for this because we're going to be trying and guessing and checking. And if it doesn't work, we're going to erase it and try something else. Okay? So then here, I know that this times this would give me this 8 right here. And so I'm going to think of some factors of 8. So I know I could do 1 and 8, or I could do 2 and 4. So this is where, again, make sure you have a pencil for this because we're going to be doing a lot of erasing here. So I'll try a 1 here, and I'll try an 8 here. So I have lots of different combinations with the 3 and the x versus the 1 and the 8 or the 2 and the 4, but I need a specific combination that's going to give me the outside and the inside together will give me negative 10x. I'm going to put the outside underneath though, and I like to call these carets, okay? So this right here, this 3x times the 8 is my O, it's my outside. And when I multiply those two together, I get 24x, okay? And then the I, the inside, is this 1 times this x. And 24x and 1x right here will never give me this negative 10x that I'm looking for. So this combination here is not going to work. So what I would do next is I would try to swap these. I would try to swap the 1 and the 8 and see if that helps at all. So instead, I'm going to put, and by the way, you're going to need a lot of patience for this, but the more practice you get with this, the easier it's going to become. You're going to get a lot faster at this, I promise. You just need some practice with it. So swap the 8 and the 1. Again, I'm using 8 and 1 because 8 times 1 is 8. It's on my list of factors that I have here. So for my outside here, I would have 3x times 1, which is 3x. For my inside here, I would have 8 times x, which is 8x. And there's no way that 8x and 3x can give me this negative 10x that I'm looking for, which means that 1 and 8 is not going to work because if I put it, the 8 here, the 1 here, it doesn't work. When I swapped them, it didn't work, so I'm not going to use 8 and 1. Okay, so now I'm going to try to place the 4 and the 2. So I'll try to put the 2 here, and I'll try to put the 4 here. And this outside term right here, the outside terms multiplied together would give me 6x. The inside terms here multiplied together would give me 4x. And I'm trying to get a negative 10x right here. And I can get that from these two values if the 4 is negative and if the 6 is negative. Notice how I have not put any signs in here yet because I just need to figure out the numbers first before I put in any signs to see what's going to happen here. So because this 4x is negative right here, that means that the 4 here has to be a negative because negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And because this 6x right here is a negative, that means this 2 has to be negative. And to be 100% sure that you did this right, multiply this negative 4 by negative 2, and you have to get positive 8, which we do. So that means that my final factored form here would have to be 3x minus 4 times x minus 2. Now, a quick note, if you wrote x minus 2 times 3x minus 4, that is also fully acceptable. And like I said earlier, the more practice you get with this, the more you're going to get these answers quickly. At first, you're going to take some time, but take the time now, get the practice, get a really good understanding of it, so that way when you work on it in the future, it's going to come much more quickly and more easily for you. So again, for this right here, for number 4, we know that the first would be 2x squared. So we know that if I multiply the first term here and the first term here, I'll get 2x squared. 2 is nice because it's prime, so my only option is just 2 times 1, but it's 2x times 1x, okay? All right, and then we also know that our last right here would have to be negative 28y squared. Again, I'm not going to worry about the signs for right now. I'm just going to figure out the numbers. So I'm going to list out some factors of 28. So I could do 1, 28, 2 and 14. 4 times 7 gives me 28. And I believe those are the only factors of 28. So what I'm going to do now is just try to place some numbers. So I'm going to start with the 4 and the 7 just to see what happens with the 4 and the 7. So I'll put 4 here and I'll put 7 here, but be careful, this is y squared. So this needs to be 4y and 7y, okay? Now, just a reminder, this xy will come from the O combined with the I. Okay, and let's just put the F here so you know that this will be the first and this will be the last. So right here, let's do the outside. So 2x times 7y. 2 times 7 is 14, and then x times y is xy. 4y times x is 4xy or yx. It doesn't matter what order I put it in. There's no way that I can get, by the way, this is 1, xy, there's an invisible 1. There's no way I can get a 1 from a 4 and a 14. This is just not possible. So that means that this combination is not going to work. So I'm going to try to swap the 4y with the 7y before I can officially say that the 4 and the 7 don't work. So I'll put the 7y here instead, and I'll put the 4y here. So when I do my outside, it's 2x times 4y, which is 8xy. When I do my inner, it's 7y times x, which is 7yx or 7xy. And I can definitely get a 1xy if the 8 is positive and the 7 is negative, because 8 minus 7 is 1. So since the 7 is negative, that means that this 7y right here has to be negative. And since this 8xy is positive, that means that this 4y has to be a positive. Let's double check to make sure that when I multiply this negative by this positive, I get the sign that I need here, which is a negative. So this worked for me, and I can now say that my final answer is going to be 2x minus 7y times x plus 4y. All right, in our next example, number 5, negative 10 minus 3x plus x squared, we could factor this as is, but I strongly suggest that you put this in descending order first, because it's just going to be so much easier to deal with. So I'm going to put the x squared first, the minus 3x second, and then the minus 10 last. So right here, I know that my first will multiply together to give me x squared, and this is nice because x squared times x, or sorry, x times x is x squared. I also know that the last will multiply together here to give me negative 10. So I can make a list of factors for 10. So I could do either 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. Okay, and you're gonna find that when it's just x squared, you're gonna probably prefer it because this is a lot easier to see what's gonna work for us when it's just x squared. And I'll show you why in a minute. But we know that the outside and the inside together will give us this 3x right here. So this is my outside. This right here is my inside right here. And the reason really that makes this easy is that it's just 1 here and 1 here, and that is going to make it so much easier for me to find these values here. So if I place like a 5 here and a 2 here, my outside x times 2 is 2x. My inside 5 times x is 5x. And I'm trying to get a negative 3x from these two values, which I can get if the 2x is positive and the 5x is negative. So that means that this right here would be a minus 5, this right here would be a plus 2, and this is my final answer. Again, if you say x plus 2 times x minus 5, that also works. I could tell that I would be using 2 and 5 because the outside and the inside would have 2x and 5x because I'm just multiplying by 1 right here. All right, in our last example here, I strongly suggest that you factor out the negative if the leading coefficient is negative, because it's just so hard to deal with factoring if our leading coefficient is negative. And to be honest, I'm just going to avoid it if possible. So right here in this example, I'm just going to factor out a negative value. So when I factor it out of negative x to the power of 4, I get positive x to the power of 4. When I factor it out of negative 17x squared, I get positive 17x squared. Factored out of negative 30, I get positive 30. And if you notice here, if I distribute the negative through here, all of these values here will turn into negatives, which will match what we have up here. All right, cool. Now that I've done that, I can just go ahead and factor what I have inside of here, and I can completely ignore the negative. But I still have to bring that negative down. So just like we've always done, the first two terms multiplied together will give us x to the power of 4. Be careful with this because we need x squared times x squared instead of just x times x, because 2 plus 2 is 4. This x to the power of 4 means that we need these exponents right here, okay? We also know that our lasts will multiply together to give us 30. So I'm going to go ahead and make a list of factors of 30. So I can try 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4 doesn't work, 5 and 6. My list is fully complete because the next number is 6, which is already on my charts. So I'm going to look for factors that will work for me to give me an outside and an inside will collect together to give me the 17x squared. And again, this is nice because this is 1x squared and 1x squared, so it's a lot easier to find these values. So let's try 2 and 15. So I'll try a 2 here, I'll try a 15 here, X squared times 15 is 15x squared. That's the outside. The inside together will give me 2x squared. If they are both positive, I will be able to get this 17x squared that I'm looking for. So that means that this right here would be a positive 2, and this right here would be a positive 15. And literally, that's it. That's all I have to do. This is my answer. Just make sure that you have that negative in front. And again, if you have negative x squared plus 15 times x squared plus 2 instead, that is totally fine as a final answer. That's it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.